charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby, and with me tonight reviewing tomorrow's papers we have Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro. But before we let them utter their truths, we go to the news, which tonight is read to you by Simon Pusey.
Thanks, Dominic. I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has appealed to Russian people to seek out the truth for themselves about Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. In a video message directed to the Russian population, Boris Johnson said they only needed an online VPN connection to gain access to independent information from around the world. It's after the mayor of the Ukrainian town Bucha has accused Russian troops of deliberately killing civilians during their month-long occupation of the town. The Kremlin denies the allegations.
Civilians massacred, shot dead with their hands tied, women raped in front of their young children, bodies crudely burned, dumped in mass graves or just left lying in the street. The reports are so shocking and so sickening, it's no wonder your government is seeking to hide them from you. Your president knows that if you could see what was happening, you would not support his war.
Boris Johnson there. Ukraine's president has called for Nuremberg-style trials after accusing Russia of committing what he called the most terrible war crimes since World War II. Speaking via video link at the United Nations Security Council in New York, Vladimir Zelensky warned of further Russian cruelty in other towns and villages. His comments followed United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres warning Russia's invasion of Ukraine is one of the greatest challenges ever to international world order. President Zelensky described in detail the attacks across the country.
Russia wants to turn Ukrainians into silent slaves. We are dealing with a state that turns its veto at the UN Security Council into the right to cause death, which undermines the whole architecture of global security, which lets the evil remain unpunished and spread across the world.
Speaking in Poland, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says the UK will step up its sanctions against Russia.
This week, we will announce that we've frozen over $350 billion of Putin's war chest, making over 60% of the regime's $604 billion foreign currency reserves unavailable. Our coordinated sanctions are pushing the Russian economy back to the Soviet era.
The UK, US and Australia have agreed to work together on hypersonic and anti-hypersonic weaponry. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, US President Joe Biden and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison say it is all part of the AUKUS military pact that was announced last year. The three countries reiterated their unwavering commitment to an international system which they say respects human rights. And the D-Day veteran Harry Billings has died at the age of 96. The former Royal Engineer was 18 years old when he was one of the first British soldiers to land on Gold Beach in 1994. He was one of only 4 survivors from his unit. He later fought in Caen and Falaise Pocket in Normandy. His daughter Sally Billings Shandley said some of his last words were love one another. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Headliners with Dominic.
Thank you very much, Simon. Hello and welcome to Headliners, the paper review show that has comedians look at tomorrow's papers instead of waffly old fuddy-duddies. My name's Dominic Frisby, and tonight my guests are both from the wrong side of the Atlantic Ocean. They are Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro. Hello, guests, strangers to our land.
Yeehaw!
Well, you're from San Francisco, Scott, is that right?
Originally, yes, I am. Yes.
And why did you choose London ahead of SF?
I prefer the weather. It keeps me younger looking, but also I felt the British were less savage about their reactions to most things civil. I felt safer here.
But has that changed in the culture war?
No, they've become more brutal, I think. Yeah, the conservatives like to eat red meat and hate everyone, so it's become a bit brutal here. But I'm playing along, really.
And Dana, Edmonton?
Edmonton, Alberta, yeehaw!
That's like central Canada, isn't it?
It's actually Western Canada,
Okay.
but it's
Nice
a place where even black people know how to two-step and line dance, and that includes me.
Okay, very good. So you're good at country dancing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. It's not something I like to share, but it is something I can do.
It's so fun.
I don't look like it, but I was a UK former salsa dancing champion once upon a time.
Salsa dancing. You.
So I remember that. I can believe that.
That's hard to picture.
Right. The show starts with a gander through tomorrow's headlines, so let's do that now, starting with the Daily Mail, which has
Telegraph.
"Don't let Putin do this in your name." That's Boris's message to the Russian people. Onto the Telegraph. "Stop Putin or dissolve yourself," Zelensky tells UN. That's a story we'll be covering. There's also a picture of Tiger Woods, who's making a return to the Masters and claims he can win it. Good luck to him. On to the Independent, and there we see a picture of Zelensky addressing the UN in a scene that looks like something out of Star Wars. Crikey. And then we have "Ministers left in dark as COVID test scheme ends. Scientists warn of public health risk as infections hit record high." On to the Financial Times. "Fed to make rapid cuts to balance sheet next month," says top official. That's so-called quantitative tightening. And there's also US, UK and Australia band together on hypersonic weapons to counter China. That's just what we need. Right, the Mirror's next. "If I don't make it, this is who you are." And this is a message that a mum has written on her 2-year-old daughter's back in case she's killed. Can you imagine? Onto the Times. "Britain wants hypersonic missiles to counter Russia." I thought it was China, but maybe it's Russia. And there's a picture of a protester in Moscow who's alerting Russians to what's going on in Ukraine. Onto the Express. 2,921 council fat cats paid more than 100 grand. I'm sure that'll make taxpayers across the country delighted. That's a recent research report by the Taxpayers Alliance. Onto the Eye. Tory rebellion brewing over Channel 4 privatisation. That's another story we'll be looking at. The Metro's next. "You been on the vodka." This is in reference to Russia's attempts to blame Ukraine for the fact that it was invaded. I mean, literally, have you been on the vodka? And finally, we have the Daily Star. "Oldies on the front line. Dud's army." Don't tell him your name, Ivan. Vlad's so desperate he's recruiting soldiers aged 60. Goodness me. And those are the headlines. And so we start with Wednesday's Telegraph. Dana, this is yours. Zelensky was on I guess it was a Zoom call of some kind to the UN, and he really didn't mince his words, did he?
No, he didn't. Vladimir Zelensky tells the UN, "Act now to stop Russia or dissolve yourself." Ukrainian leaders call for new Nuremberg trials and attack on world peacekeepers for failure to halt Vladimir Putin's war. And he's also claiming that they are committing the most terrible war crimes we have seen since the Second World War, which I don't think that's true, as there was a ethnic cleansing in Bosnians out of Yugoslavia in the 90s, but we can move on from that. So, yeah, they actually used Adolf Eichmann, who was one of the architects of the Nazi regime, who actually ended up escaping to Argentina. They said it was Nuremberg, but actually he was kidnapped by the Mossad and they tried him in Israel. Yeah, so this is interesting. I think what was really crazy was when you looked at the amount of bodies and how long they had been left on the ground. So they tried to claim that this was fake. It wasn't fake. They had some satellite images and the bodies were still in the same position. So, yeah, horrible.
It's gruesome. There was some CCTV, I gather. Was it CCTV or a satellite picture of
It's a satellite picture, but this is part of the problem. This is what Russia's using in their favor. They're satellite pictures from Maxar Technologies, which is a company that works with 50 different countries and 70 different businesses across the world, but they are located in the U.S. mostly. And they have a huge American flag in their office that promotes the business. So Russia's saying all these photos have been, they've all been faked. They've all been, portrayed to make us look bad. Those bodies were not there when we were in the country. They were dropped by the Ukrainians after we left on the 31st of March. We had nothing to do with this. If you look at the satellite images, you'll see a man next to his bike. He appears to have been shot walking his bike down the street.
Well, I think earlier the CC had him.
Yes.
Showed him on his bike.
Yes, of course.
Soldiers shooting at him.
So yes,
was
of course.
It CCTV? Or
again, they use all sorts of technology, this company, but I think the problem is that there's been so much torture and abuse in and around Kiev, for instance, and in other cities, that the world is shocked and stunned and has no idea, really, obviously, from what you've said, is true, how to confront the Russians. They have one of the 5 votes to veto on the UN Security Council, and they vetoed the idea of withdrawing any troops from the Ukraine. They're claiming that they've gone in to save Ukrainians from the Nazi regime running the country, who kills their own citizens. They claim that the torture is all a lie and that they have been a place for migrants from the Ukraine to run to for safety into Russia. Again, the Ukrainians, as they've gone back into some of these towns near Kiev with Zelensky, have found half-burned bodies where it appears as though the forces leaving had little time, so they burned what they could to get rid of some of the evidence.
There's also looting.
Looting, women being raped, women being branded with Nazi symbols and then burned, yes, in front of the kids. They found people crushed in their cars by tanks. This is Europe now, and the UN is completely incapable of confronting Russia. That's why he's saying, you need to either do something or just not exist.
Well, it would seem he's absolutely right.
It's understandable, isn't it? Putin's always lied, so why he wouldn't be lying about nuking everybody? I don't know why NATO and the UN is taking his word for it over that and not going in. I think Putin's not going to stop. He's not been told to stop.
No, he's not going to
so
stop.
Why would he?
I mean,
he likes it. So, as Clint Eastwood says when he's asked why the serial killer in one of his films won't stop killing, because he likes it.
Yeah.
But hey, they let Zelensky on the Grammy, so all is well.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Scott, which is slightly off topic, but you're an expert in the subject. I am pretty sure, like my gaydar says that Vladimir Putin is gay. And because no straight man is that kempt.
Right.
Do you think, is that a fair...
I mean, he's never put his hand on my leg, but I would say that he presents himself in a very sexually dynamic way that isn't usually something a straight guy does.
Shirtless horseback riding.
Shirtless horseback riding in the woods. And there's a lot of Botox and a lot of surgery. The wife looks like a radiator. It's hard to say, really.
She's a beard.
Yeah, she has a beard. Well done. And I think what's going on is it may be that his masculinity is a question. No one really knows why he's behaving the way he is. Except that he's always behaved this way.
And he's only 5'5" and he has massive lifts.
Do you know what I think, though? I'm sure we've all seen Top Gun, right? Sometimes when you overdo the macho, you go to the gay side.
Yeah, you do. You go in full circle, don't you? You wind up on your back.
Right
it's true, yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, the Eye is next, and we're changing the subject. And the Tories are not so united, it seems, on the proposals to privatise Channel 4.
Oh, right. On Channel 4, the privatisation... Channel 4, some of the supporters of Channel 4 are saying, who are opposed to the privatization of it, to the selling of it, basically, to another company. They're saying that this is revenge for the way Channel 4 reported on Brexit and continues to report.
Against the Tory party.
From a liberal perspective, they say. And the idea is that a lot of Tories don't want Channel 4 sold. They believe in competition amongst social media outlets. I mean, and Thatcher created the channel, so they're wondering why the Tories now are doing this. And it's clear that either Channel 5 or ITV will buy it because they're the ones with the most money. And then there will be no competition between the networks because they own it. So
maybe GBNews will buy it.
That might be the case. But what I found really interesting about the channel is that it is publicly owned, but it is not publicly funded. And I don't actually think that this is a bad move. I don't know if you know, but the film industry is booming. They have Netflix over here shooting things, Fox, Nickelodeon. So and let's be honest, it'd be nice to get, I think with the competition, it might bring British programming to a higher standard, at least to a global standard where they could start selling the programs abroad and not having Americans remake what they've made because it was shot on, terrible equipment.
I think some people are feeling too like that whatever the rules are at Channel 4 in creating new programming, that their hands are sort of tied under current conditions. That if the network wasn't sold, at least they could renegotiate their contract as to how they're designed to create programming, which might be nice. There might be a middle ground here where we can find a way that Channel 4 can free itself up. And the funding they do have, they can spend on programming people want to actually watch. Well, like things with me in it.
Until they book me, I don't. On to the Telegraph, and the House of Lords is getting in the way again, it would seem. Who's got this one?
I think that's me.
Is that you? Mine, but you
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Well, why don't you take this one then?
All right.
Yeah,
so the government plans to send migrants to Rwanda, and that could be blocked. Well, we know they've already tried to send them over to Albania. I think they said no. I think there was Ghana also said no to it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at people who process their migrants offshore, like Australia, these people are costing about $4.3 million a year. Granted, there's only 1,193 people there at this time, but they can't verify. They can't justify this cost. But what I find even more interesting, a little bit of trivia if you're interested, how many of the world's refugees do you think Britain takes in?
I would imagine. What percentage?
Yeah.
1.3%.
Less than 1%. And I find that very interesting considering there was a time when the British Empire literally
It's not just refugees, though, is it?
No. It's not. What do you mean it's not just refugees?
Well, it's migrant and illegal migrant.
Yeah.
Refugees implies people escaping war-torn countries and so on.
But I think what happens is I think that's what's really starting to bring things into problems, is that we have to define and differentiate the difference between a migrant and a refugee.
I think it is defined.
Illegal. I don't think that it is. I think there's a lot of gray area because you'll find that a lot of asylum seekers have to go through a tribunal and everything else to have their claims processed because they're seen to be illegal, but they are actually valid cases.
Well, apparently it says here that the migrants crossing the channel are incentivized by the belief that once they're in the UK, it's very difficult to remove them. I think that's why they want to put them offshore, because then that incentive will go away. It's also, they think it might cost about £100,000 each migrant to process them in a place like, anywhere offshore, they say, which is quite expensive, I think. That's why some Tories are opposed to it, because of the expense.
Yeah, I mean, it's very expensive, but I don't see a cheap solution. The big problem is that, I mean, in the case of this Rwanda thing, I can see it acting as a deterrent for about 2 or 3 months, and then I can see all manner of horrible atrocities going on in Rwanda, because there's nobody in charge. You know, the British will have no say in how they're...
But that's why the House of Lords don't want it to happen there, because they're saying it's too insecure a place. You're putting them in a place where they have no rights, no safety. And the Lords also want to block it being a criminal offence if someone goes toward a country they know is an illegal act of their own. They want to block that as a criminal offence, which is good too. The House of Lords are doing. That's one of the things that they're arguing about with the
It's an unsolvable but inevitable problem, an inevitable tide in the affairs of men. Now, in terms of global significance, this next story from The Telegraph, in my view, has by far the biggest ramifications of all the stories we're looking at today: nuclear fusion. And whenever you're talking nuclear fusion, you turn to your nuclear fusion expert, who is Dana Alexander.
Yeah, so an Oxford-based startup has claimed that major breakthrough in the quest for and crack nuclear fusion, the holy grail of energy production. The First Light Fusion has managed to achieve the reaction using its unique projectile methods for the first time in its laboratory in Kiddlington. So there's always a little bit of a risk, of course, with nuclear energy and accidents. I'm sure we're familiar with what happened in Japan. It was at Fukushima in 2011, and of course, Chernobyl. It was interesting, though. I thought there might be a bit more of a risk because, as I read, there was really only one cancer-related death in the instance of the nuclear disaster in 2011 in Japan. So I don't know, but if you look at it, 97 million barrels per day is what we use worldwide. And if we continue to use energy at the rates that we're using them now, they think that we're going to run out of oil in 46 years. So there's really not going to be much of a choice.
We certainly need nuclear power. It's the silver bullet that's going to save us in the energy crisis.
Only thing we have left. That's it. Again, we've talked about this before. The center of the planet is a nuclear reactor. That's how the planet turns. That's how we live.
Well, good for whatever the name of the organisation is in Oxford. I've forgotten. Right, on to The Guardian, and the government has launched a study that'll solve the energy crisis.
Speaking of the energy crisis, it is, yes. They want to reconsider the moratorium on fracking. The government's announced.
What's the frack?
Yeah, exactly. The MPs have said, we need to look at this again. They promised in 2019, their manifesto stated that they would not support shale gas extraction unless the science shows categorically that it can be done safely. Not many MPs in the Conservative Party behind this. And also, some Conservatives have come forward and said we need to do this because of what's happening in the Ukraine. They're using the war to say that we've got to break our addiction to Russian oil. This is a way to do it. But only a few. I think it's
not
5.
Addicted to Russian gas. We're only the rest of Europe is, but we're only about 5% natural gas.
Right,
we get most of our gas from Norway.
Right.
But this would make us self-sufficient.
And
so
I think,
in terms of a world that's slipping out of globalization into conflict,
I think the rest of Europe is a concern of the UK's too.
Oh yeah, we can export to them.
Right, and as they slip away without Russian oil, I think UK would suffer.
Also, the risk with fracking, water contamination, air pollution, headaches, asthma, birth defects, cardiac problems, childhood leukemia. Once your water and your air is gone, there's no point to anything, really, is there? So they really do have to consider this and take it seriously.
You've got to get it right. You've got to get the science right.
It's made the US almost independent, though.
Would you rather the UK, a reasonably responsible country compared to other nations in the world, or some at least, was producing its own natural gas? Who's going to produce it more cleanly, the UK or some, despot somewhere?
And there's a lot of rocks in Scotland just sitting around doing nothing, right? A lot of pebbles on the beach. Let's use them.
Right, we've reached the end of part 1. One tradition we steadfastly maintain here at GB News is for part 2 to follow part 1, and that is what is going to happen. We'll see you in a moment.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss, and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby. With me tonight to offset my straight white masculinity, we have box-ticking comedians Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro. And so we cross La Manche, or to use the correct pronunciation, the Channel to France, where Dana Marine Le Pen is closing in on statist button pusher Emmanuel Macron. This is from Wednesday's Times.
Yeah, so she's been on the campaign trail for 6 months, so she's really had a time to improve. And I think what she's done is she's attempted to soften her xenophobic image and instead focused on the cost of living. But I think that's a play right out of Hitler's book, is it not, right? When everybody was broke, you blame it on the Jews, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day...
I don't think Marine Le Pen is Hitler.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I'm saying that is a move, that, that is a tactic that people...
Well, politicians choose their arguments and you concentrate on what you think is going to get you elected and where you think the other guy's weak and the cost of living crisis.
Like the alt-right has, right? They've had to take the hoods off and look a little bit more presentable. And they also will eventually need
I think you're seeing this through very cynical eyes, Dana.
Well, also, Eric...
And Emmanuel Macron is being like tarting himself up for the election. He's been trying to dress up like Vladimir Zelensky to make himself more electable. Well, so they're both at it.
He's very visual pleasing, if you ask me, but on his own. But also, Eric Zemmour, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, the anti-Islam candidate that was running against Marine Le Pen, has lost a lot of his credibility recently. So that's given her some more numbers too. And then the other candidates have just kind of fallen by the wayside because she gets so much TV time in France. But this always happens with her. Her numbers are high until the election starts to get nearer and nearer, then they start to decrease because people realize we can't put that lunatic as the head of the country. We've got to get back that little conservative guy.
It's so sad. I hope France doesn't do it. Have they learned nothing from Boris and Trump? Have they learned nothing?
Well, I mean, you mean how to elect a winner? Is that what you mean? I'm not sure they have. We'll see, won't we?
I sense some pro-Macron sentiment which contradicts with the view of your host. The Mirror is next, and this is one of those stories where you go, how is this even possible?
Well, the Chinese need their organs. And as it turns out, they have a very short waiting time for transplants in China, one of the shortest in the world, which is strange because they have so few donors willing to give up their organs. But as it turns out, it's okay in China to harvest the organs from a dead prisoner.
An executed prisoner.
Well, executed, or it turns out just sort of maybe.
Well, they're saying they're wondering, there's actually an inquiry into finding out whether or not they're actually taking these organs from people who are still alive.
Well, the thing is, when they're taking their hearts out, it might be the thing that executes them, as it turns out. But oh well. Did you ever see that film, Never Let Me Go, made in 2010, about children who are raised in the future UK? It's, some futuristic film, although it doesn't look in the future, but it is. And they're raised to provide organs for people that need them. And they don't know that until they're older. It's one of the most depressing films I've ever seen, but it's like this.
Okay, Scott, let's focus with you on the next story. Wednesday's Guardian. We're on drug driving.
Oh, right.
New drink driving.
Well, as it turns out, there are more drug drivers being pulled over than drink drivers. That number has increased, right? Nearly 14,000 motorists punished for driving under the influence of narcotics is a number that's greatly increased over the last 2 years. There were almost nearly 14,000 in England and Wales, and these are people under the influence of all sorts of things that are not alcohol. And Grant Shepps says now he wants to charge them for their drug tests the way we do for drink drivers. And before they get behind the wheel of a car, he thinks they should have to go through rehab, which they should also have to pay for. So they're getting more strict, also because he thinks...
So if you smoke a spliff and you get caught driving after you smoked a spliff, you have to go into rehab?
Yes, and he's saying also, so watch out. And you sound worried. And also he's saying we should check them for booze because people that take drugs tend to drink more, and we should make that a separate penalty if you're drunk and high on drugs.
Don't you find it funny that they're discovering this over the 2 last years, which have obviously been the lockdown years? Like, I'm wondering how it's just been the last 2 years. Is it that there's less people on the road and there are more checks because of that? You have to wonder.
Well,
yeah, well, I imagine drug consumption has gone up. I know alcohol consumption has.
And wife beating.
Right.
There you go.
Another vice we're talking about next, and this is gambling, and this is from Wednesday's Guardian, and a valuable source of revenue for sports and TV stars is about to be cut off, Dana.
I know. So basically, the UK ban on gambling ads featuring sports and reality TV stars is going to be cut because they don't want gambling to be too attractive to 18-year-olds, which I found funny because there's a few, like when I first got to this country, I remember, you know, little alcohol pops that you guys have? They cut the alcohol because of the teenagers as well. It's like that sign I saw on a bus in Cardiff, a school bus, that said no drinking on the bus. I'm like, they're going to school. What's going on? Is Peppa Pig?
You don't have, is gambling, I know gambling ads illegal in Canada altogether?
It's not illegal in Canada, actually. You have to really work hard to get a license to gamble. So you wouldn't find like a casino, proper casino in Toronto. Everybody goes over to Niagara Falls. But they also have people who are Indigenous, right? They have a lot of they own a lot of casinos on
Are the
reserve.
ads illegal?
No, yes, I think they are, actually. I can't recall ever seeing a gambling ad that I can think of.
No, we had ads.
No, I can't think of seeing.
But what Dana says is accurate in the U.S. too. A lot of the casinos and gambling places are Indigenous people land, and they're also tax exempt for them.
And you can also do fights on their land too, like boxing fights. Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
They're fun gigs when there's blood on the ground.
None of it's I never really got gambling.
Really?
Until I started it. Right. The Times is next, and the world's biggest ego will now be overseeing the world's biggest verbal dogfight platform. This is you, Dan.
Yeah, this is me again. So Elon Musk, who's an avid user of Twitter, has actually acquired 9.2% of Twitter. So they think that as soon as this happened, shares in Twitter rose by more than a quarter yesterday after the stock market filing revealed that Tesla chief had bought 73.5 million shares in the company. So yeah, as soon as Elon Musk got on board, shares went up. But he didn't declare this, and he might be fined. Oh, guess what? What is it? What are they going to fine him? It's something like $200,000 or something. I mean, what does that mean to the world's richest man?
207,000. It's weird, I mean,
I think his declaration was like he did declare it, but he declared it
too late,
a week too late,
or
something like
that. Oh,
so nail him.
Now he's going to miss lunch.
But it's weird because since Jack Dorsey left, I think they got rid of him because the company had never shown profit, and I still am not sure that Twitter has. I mean, how does it make money? Confuses me. I've always wondered that. Well, yeah, but apparently
ads
it's not
are his
enough.
biggest source of revenue, but I don't know if it's actually profitable.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've abandoned most of the headquarters in San Francisco. If you fly over it, like I do sometimes, or you look at it, it's completely empty, and that little party they used to have on the roof doesn't happen daily anymore. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but the value of its user base, I mean, it almost doesn't matter. There's so many tech companies are like this, it almost doesn't matter if they don't make money. The value is in their user base and the information they have.
I feel like I'm famous on Twitter, but I don't get a payback. What's the problem? No,
I know, every time I write something, Elon Musk is probably thinking this because he's got how many gazillion followers he's got. Every time he types something on Twitter, Twitter's value goes up because he's bringing his fame to Twitter, and the only winner from Twitter is Twitter.
Yeah.
So I guess he's thinking, well, I may as well have a share in it.
Yeah, or more than
give
one.
It so much value.
I wonder if he's going to have any power, though, because do you remember that one kid who was following his flight path? And he tried to get the kid to take down all of his tweets. I wonder if he can now have the power to do something like that.
Well, he's on the board now, so he'll have a say on the board. I mean, it's only a vote. I don't know how many others are on the board. Probably 7, something like that.
And I think
I think he's going to be a hard person to disagree with. Put it that way. You'll have to have some cojones to stand up to him. But I think it's for the good of Twitter because the censorship on Twitter was so inconsistent.
You can see porn on Twitter.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
Really graphic.
I know. How do you know? How do you know?
An artist who follows me. I hired her for one of my song videos. She was absolutely brilliant. But, I mean, it's really graphic stuff. And that's on there. And yet, somebody retweets a headline from a newspaper and they're blocked.
Very strange. Or uses one word that they don't like. It's very strange,
So there's lots of inconsistencies. Right. Anyway, I mean, there's inconsistencies everywhere. But we do our best to iron them out. Right, we're going to take another break, and then
God.
it's part 3. When the stories get even weirder and more wonderful, we've got daffodil slaughter, radio messages to space, and Charles Darwin's stolen notebooks. We'll see you in a moment.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls, and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate, and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Welcome back to Headliners, and with me, I'm Dominic Frisby, and with me tonight reviewing tomorrow's papers, or today if you're watching the early morning version of the show, we have Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro. And Scott, we'll start this part with you. The billionaire rich list just got shorter. How much do we care?
Well, the number, will we care? Because those are some of my best friends. The number of billionaires worldwide has fallen because of the Russian sanctions, apparently. The planet's richest people are still holding a combined $12.7 trillion. So don't worry too much. But the number has fallen from about, I circled this.
It's fallen by 329 to 2,668.
See, there you go. And some people have left the list of billionaires, including Peloton's John Foley and Bumble's Whitney Wolf Herd.
Do you know what I wonder if that's from, the Peloton? Did you see the Sex and the City?
I did,
Yeah, when Big died on the Peloton.
But also a kid crawled under it and died too. I think people...
Oh my God.
I think that's also to do with just generally a lot of those tech stocks that went absolutely bananas during COVID. They've all fallen in value.
So I'm sure John Foley's still rich. He's just not on that billionaire list. But some people have joined it, like Rihanna. We love her. And Peter Jackson, the director, and venture capitalist Joshua Kushner. So, Barbados, Bulgaria, Estonia, and Uruguay have all added lists.
Rihanna's a billionaire.
Woo. Yeah. Wow. She better be now. She has a child. She has a child to raise. Jeff Bezos, whose fortune dropped to $171 billion. After a small decline in the company's share price and donations to charity.
Yes, but his wife's dropped even more because she's giving a lot more of her money.
His money.
Well, yeah, the money, right? So she's fallen a bit, but she's still incredibly wealthy. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what's happened is this global stock is bouncing back right now, so these billionaires might climb back up. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we're going to see some billionaires in metals.
Oh, right.
In tin and copper.
You've been telling me that for a very long time.
Well, I told you back in the noughties to buy gold. We'll see.
2008.
Yeah, but I was
you were angry you were angry about a place. You told me you shouldn't put your money in properties, you put it in precious metals.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I was wrong about that.
Yeah, you were then.
But you should do it now. We go on to the Mirror next, and Dana, the theft of Charles Darwin's notebooks.
Yes, so the stolen Charles Darwin notebooks mysteriously returned to the library 22 years later after they went missing. And of course, you know Charles Darwin for survival of the fittest. And now the books are valued at $10 million by a world-famous art crime investigator. But they were returned to Cambridge, and they're actually looking at fingerprinting these and finding out who the culprit is. I suspect they're dead.
Well, he returned it with a cute little note, a little.
Happy
I don't
Easter.
think it was
In a pink bag.
A pink bag and a little Happy Easter note. So I don't think he's dead. He might, because Easter note sounds current to me. But also, they liked the note. It was a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, funny note. So they might let him off the hook just for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, let him off the hook.
I think they should. They've returned the books. He was probably there, and there was nobody looking, and he was like, I could nick these.
Yeah.
So he did, and then he had them for a bit, and then returned
I wonder why he
them.
kept them for 22 years, though, and
It
then
is
returned
odd.
them. Yeah, I guess maybe he memorized them. Or he
Sounds
really
like
wanted to
a
read.
vendetta. He got mad at some, sassy librarian or something like that. He's like, I'm gonna get her. But it's amazing. Or maybe he couldn't sell them.
Maybe
right?
you just have one of those moments, when you look back at your life and you try to right all the wrongs and put past wrongs to right, and he maybe had a sort of a purge moment
An
and sent
epiphany,
it back
yeah.
for that reason. Or
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Amelie, have you seen the film Amelie? Maybe
course.
she left a little trinket and that caused him to do it.
Yeah.
Who knows, but they're
People are
back
funny.
where they belong. Well, maybe then, I bet he read them more times than they get read in the museum.
He's probably done.
Yeah, and they were in a
At least he
good-
didn't spill something on him. You know what I mean?
He might
Come back with a
return
big coffee cup ring in the middle of
I
it.
wonder if he'll return them, though, and then tomorrow two other books will be missing, though. Oh, he's done it again. He's striked
That would be humiliating for the museum. Right, Scott, the Telegraph now, and are you taken with my vanilla musk?
Well, not the first time you've asked me that, but apparently vanilla is the who blushes anymore? Vanilla is the most liked scent because we're boring.
No.
It originated in orchids, and this study examined 235 people, presented them with 10 scents.
From 9 different cultures.
9 different cultures, including America, Mexico, Thailand, maybe even Canada.
Ooh.
And they presented them with all sorts of scents,
But not
hoping.
England.
No, not England. All sorts of hoping that they would choose something a bit more interesting, but they came up with the most
My favorite.
expected one.
I don't know. Vanilla always reminds me of being in some store I don't want to be in with my mom. Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
somebody who just isn't that avant-garde or risky when it comes to scents. My favorite smell is barbecue.
Oh, right.
It's a lovely smell.
I think so. I bet you they didn't put that in 1 to 10 things. They would have
They might
jumped
have,
over
but
vanilla.
They said that the least favorite smells are ones you'd expect as well: sweaty feet, decaying fish, and overripe green peppers. I don't know what,
What
that smells
is
like, but
that
I guess
about?
it's really, really
I'm going to
profoundly
go with
awful.
fried onions.
All right, you don't like that.
You
really?
like?
No, I think
he loves
it's the
it.
best.
It is fantastic.
Yeah. It
I
is a good
I
smell.
do find the smell of vanilla comforting.
Oh, right. It smells like an old
smells like
lady's
grandma.
milk.
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit. I love the smell of bacon, although I refuse to eat it, but I do adore that smell of coffee. It's all those morning smells, isn't it? Pancakes. Because you're hungry when you first get up. You
Yes.
gobble it all down.
Right, you're both wrong. Fried onions is nicer. Onions fried in olive oil. Right, as someone who aspires to become a digital nomad, I love this next story from the Daily Mail. The global passport rankings. Dana.
Yeah, so I was actually surprised to find out that Japan and Singapore still have the most powerful passports in the world. The UK moved up to 5th, and the US sits at 6th, and Russia falls to 49th, and as Ukraine reaches a record high. So I think that's interesting. You know what I thought was really interesting was that Afghanistan can only go to 26 countries, Syria 29, and the Ukraine you can go to 143.
That's how they measure the power, is how many countries you can get into free of
Without a visa.
visa.
How do you feel like when you go over a border? That's a pretty strong passport, the American one.
I usually use my Italian one, actually. It's a bit stronger, to be honest.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, let's look up how strong it is.
It's number 3 or 4 on that list, I think. It's pretty good.
It's
Is it?
third equal.
And
Yeah.
Canada's 7. It's interesting. I show up in some of these countries like Lithuania. I'm like, oh, they're going to question me for sure. And they're just like, no, you're Canadian. You're either doing, or you're black. You're doing one of two things: sports or entertainment. Just go inside.
The hardest one for me to get in and out of with my Italian passport is Italy. It's the most difficult.
Really?
They challenge me. They speak to me in Italian to see if I speak it. My husband, ironically Brazilian, speaks Italian fluently, and he's standing behind me listening, whispering answers in my ear so I can pass the test. And the one
Why
time
don't you use your American passport to go to Italy?
Because it's just with the Italian I'm an EU member, so it's easier getting in and out with my time.
Okay.
My time. But one
They
time...
don't question. You just flash it and then you just put it through the machine.
Oh, no. They asked me questions. And one time they were two people watching, and they made me sit in the corner by myself, and Edson wasn't
No
there.
Italian at passport control ever flagged anyone. They're all
Terrible.
sitting there smoking fags and drinking coffee.
Because I don't speak Italian. They're like, you got in without speaking our language. And so... Yeah.
I was in Greece, and I was just sitting outside the airport, and the guy asked me for my passport. I was so proud to take out the Canadian one. I'm like, look, you wish I wanted to live in your country.
Amazingly, Germany's second, Japan is top, then Singapore, best 2 passports in the world. I mean, I wonder why Japan is top. I guess because their tourists spend loads of money and they go to loads of places.
They tip really well, and they always order fresh orange juice.
And give free Walkmans.
Yeah,
I would have thought Switzerland would have been higher.
Yeah, Vatican City, 27th.
See, evil, wrong and evil. Do you speak Italian fluently?
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You should get an Italian.
You should teach Scott.
I've got an English one. Why would I want an Italian passport?
An EU passport, they're better than English. Are you kidding?
Are you kidding me?
Crazy. Well, look at the list.
I'm sorry, when I flash my passport and I speak in my Queen's English, the world loves me. The English are loved by the world, but hated by our fellow nationals for some bizarre reason. But yeah, I'm surprised Russia's 49th. What are the worst ones? Chad, South Sudan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia.
It's all unfair in a way, isn't it? Because it's more about their government's actions than the people that...
Definitely. I qualify for a Jamaican passport, but I know that would cause problems at the border.
I
left
like
that one alone.
Jamaican passport. I'd go for one of those. Kind of cool. On to the Daily Star, and I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Well, not in St. Blaise in Cornwall, you didn't, Mr. Wordsworth.
That's right. Apparently, the local health and safety expert has decided that eating daffodils will not kill you, but make you very ill. You'll recover, but you'll throw up and have headaches and stuff. And he's afraid that children will start eating them in the parks. They get so excited. It's spring. Got to have a daffodil. So he's removed all the daffodils from the parks in his village. Dr. Mark Evans from Southwest Health Protection Unit. He said severe vomiting can be a result, so they're going.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you're dumb enough to eat a daffodil, you deserve some of that.
Well, maybe this is Darwin's method,
There
and the
you go.
council
Survival of the
intervening
fittest.
with
They're
Darwin.
so beautiful. They're only here for like a couple of weeks.
I know.
really enjoy them every year. They're so gorgeous.
But he's literally gone. The council are agitating to remove the things, the daffodils, but somebody's actually gone round and decapitated all the daffodils.
They have. And it might
It's
be
health and safety gone mad.
It might be easier to just put up a sign saying, don't eat the daffodils, but then the little ones might not be able to read, they'll eat them anyway.
But there's so many things that they've banned. I mean, you can't even bring a bottle of shampoo on a plane. You know what I mean? You weren't allowed to chew gum in Singapore. There's all these rules. There's always one person always wrecks it. Some boomer wrecks it for everybody.
I don't believe that kids are going to eat daffodils, because then daffodils don't
Kids
present...
eat boogers.
Yeah, they'll eat berries, because berries design themselves to look attractive, but you don't see a daffodil and think, oh, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
And in any case, if you're a kid and you munch a little bit of daffodil, it will build up your resistance.
Fair enough. You know, I have a little cousin, I'm not even joking. I went to read him his stories and found out he had eaten his entire library. He eats paper from a book, so I wouldn't put it past a kid, but you know what? That's how they learn.
And I think mental health is more important, especially for the elderly and old people who are...
Babies pick the
daffodil.
So if one or two babies dies, old people stay happier. I think it's a totally equal...
The circle of life.
They're not going to die. Right, on to the Daily Star. Oh, we've done the Daily Star. I was about to re-recite my Wordsworth to you. The Times is next, Dana, and birds are brighter in the tropics.
Yes, officially, birds get brighter as you move towards the equator. I don't know what the point of studying that was. I think somebody probably just wanted a vacation. But I got to say, it's not easy being a city bird, and no word of a lie, on Sunday I saw a raven eat a dead rat, and I lost a little bit of colour.
We might have some pictures of some birds. Do we have some pictures of some birds that we can... There we go, there's some bright tropical birds. No sparrows and no tits look like that. I think, from my time in the Amazon, I do think birds are incredibly bright in the tropics, but every time, I think colours generally look brighter in hotter countries.
They're camouflaging
Not
themselves
the grey
as well.
light of Britain or whatever. Colours don't seem as...
Or anybody with colour just doesn't feel like they belong.
Right, onto the Mirror. And Scott, if you thought The Silence of the Lambs was bad, wait till you hear about Cat Deely's bracelet. Or as you call her, Cat Delay.
Cat Delay.
Cat Dahmer.
Cat Dahmer has decided that she wants a bracelet made of her two sons' skin and teeth. Apparently, Milo and James had to give up some flesh, and they've already given her their teeth because they're waiting for the little radical tooth fairy to appear. Instead, she's going to take them and she can make a little bracelet out of them because it makes her feel closer to her children. She wants them near her at all times, which, you're right, is the reason Dahmer ate people. He said he wanted them closer inside. He would bring a head in a bag to the office and put the head right there. I did a play about it. He was my favorite serial killer, although not the one I communicated most often with. That would be Eric Menendez. However, the reason these people kill people...
Put the lotion in the basket. Is that the right line?
Put the lotion in the... But anyway, the reason they do... My favorite film. The reason they do it is what Kat says. They want them near them all the time.
And I bet you they probably don't want to be that near to her. Sounds a little smothery to me.
Well, I think in a family like that, it's hard to say, isn't it? Maybe the kids are just like her, which is terrible.
Gosh, she's probably breastfeeding them till they're 7.
Maybe they'll make a little pantsuit out of her when she's gone. Who knows?
The skin is weird, but the teeth I kind of get.
It's all
because
creepy and horrible.
you get the little
Dom.
baby tooth, and it's permanent, and you think you want to preserve it.
All of them, maybe what? Like I have a boar's tooth on one necklace, but all of the teeth, like, damn.
It's really wrong. It's all wrong. Cat's bored. Cat needs to get outside, eat some greens, go for a run, right?
Yeah.
Increase your yoga practice. Challenge yourself.
We're going to get Cat Delay onto headliners, and that will solve this. Right. An odd form of aggression in the Mirror next. Stuffing lamb chops in people's car exhausts. What's all this about?
This is very strange. So the West Mercia police are on the hunt to find out who is behind a spate of bizarre meat attacks in Crendon Hill in Hereford. They include lamb chops being stuffed in car exhausts and eggs being thrown at a house. I feel like if you're so specific about a prank, the person in the house knows a little something that they don't want to talk about. But I like how the British reaction was like, don't waste meat, that's a waste of meat. People going hungry in this country, you stuffing lamb chops in exhausts. Please.
I do love lamb chops, though. That story made me hungry.
I do, and lamb chops are not cheap.
The good ones aren't. Waitrose lamb chops are very expensive. They're delicious, though.
Do you shop in Waitrose?
I don't go there.
I go to a bespoke hipster butcher.
Oh, really?
I bet you do.
But the lamb chops are expensive, and it is wasteful. I thought you were supposed to put sugar in the engine, and what do you put in the exhaust to mess up a car?
Oh, God.
I can't remember. I can't even drive.
Oh, God, that picture's terrible. Yeah, it's weird.
Look, there we go. There's a picture.
I think
that is
a
chicken drumstick
on
the wheel.
I think it must be some sort of romantic breakup, don't you think?
Something crazy went down, and the person who had that happen to them knows more than they're saying, I think.
There's £2 worth of lamb chop, £5 worth.
That looks vaguely familiar, that image.
Imagine being the police on that case. Oh, my God.
Oosh.
Weird people. Yeah. Right, now, this is a very concerning story. The Mail, and we are broadcasting our location into deep space via a radio message. Now, is this wise?
I think people want to know if we're alone in the universe. And if you've ever watched an episode of Star Trek, you know the answer. We are not. But people want more proof. And so even though Stephen Hawking said, don't do it, because humanity our behavior is terrible, and the aliens might be worse. So we don't want them coming here.
Hey, they might eat us or enslave us.
Yeah.
How do we know if they've got radios?
Well, we're assuming. We're assuming that they're non-binary, apparently.
It's almost like peeing on a hydrant. It's like, they need to know that we're here. But it's so silly. Like, even when they put an American flag on the moon? Like, give me a break.
Here we are. I'd rather keep my camouflage on and have them not know. But some people just want to know. They want to be known and seen. So they're sending out messages. It worries some people. It doesn't worry others.
If you were head of NASA, would you ban the sending out of messages, Dana, or would you encourage it?
I mean, it's a bit fruitless. I mean, what would you tell the aliens? What would you want to tell the aliens?
We're here, and if you're light years behind us, bet on Liverpool to win the Champions League when they're 3-0 down at half-time. There we go. I don't know. It's interesting. The first message was transmitted in 1974 for the same purpose, and it was sent in binary code, and once decoded, formed a visual graphic showing a stick figure of a human, our DNA, and a depiction of our solar system.
Which is good. It's a good idea, but nothing happened from it. But I think now they think they're going to try to send it out to a farther distance from a higher aperture. And hope that helps.
Do we believe in aliens on the headliners?
I remember I had a flatmate, he said, this Scottish guy's like, all the Canadian comics are so crazy. Do you believe in aliens? And I was just like, well, I don't not believe in them. Do you know what I mean? They could be single-celled organisms. You really don't know. But I think it's definitely plausible that there is life on other planets. I mean, why wouldn't there be?
Not French people, though, hopefully.
Oh, gosh.
Life, but not the French.
Are you an alien believer?
I believe in everything. I say bring it. What do you got? I love it.
Surely, as North Americans, you've both seen UFOs in the wild lands.
I've seen some stuff that looks
Oklahoma or somewhere.
Well, recently, right, the government has come out and said there are things that are inexplicable, and they've released videos online. It's become a big deal last couple. We talked about it on the show, and I've watched those videos. I don't know.
I don't know.
It would be great.
I'd love to smoke a joint with an alien.
There's a comedian called Steve Harris who swears he's seen a UFO on the M56, I think, just outside Warrington.
He was high. I want them to have big eyes and tentacles and be funny and stuff.
Well, you know, what's that drug? DMT or whatever it is? A psychoactive drug. I'm too old to know about it. But everybody I know who's ever tried it said they met the aliens. Every single person. So if you want to meet them, just maybe try that.
OK, the secret to great coffee, says The Independent, is all down to the birds and bees. Now, Dana, this is yours because I gather, I've learned this about you, you were once trained by Starbucks.
I was once trained by Starbucks back in my sadder comedy days at the beginning of my career. Yes, and so it's the pollination that really is what's keeping the coffee at such a high quality. But I don't know if you're familiar, this is related. Have you ever heard of the Kopi Luwak, the defecated seeds? So there's
the one
actually...
would eat a coffee seed, not digest it.
There's like this monkey-looking thing in Indonesia, that in the Java region, that eats coffee beans, and it goes through their whole system, and it's a very high-quality coffee.
So is this the new hipster coffee, defecated coffee?
I'm telling you, it's a thing. And they also do it with, argon oil, but it passes through a goat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the enzymes break down the shell and do all kinds of stuff. And they also think it's because the animal can pick the quality beans because of the smell.
Oh.
But yeah.
But they're saying too in this article, it's just let nature do what nature does. Let the birds and the bees deal with the coffee. It gets rid of all the detritus. And again,
the birds eat the bad insects.
The birds for the insects, the bees for the pollination, correct.
And it increases the number of beans you can actually farm. So it helps the farmers with their profit.
It's almost as though positive non-intervention works.
As always, yes.
You're a statist. You're not a positive non-interventionist.
My favorite coffee is from Brazil, though. My husband brings big bags of Brazilian coffee. It's absolutely delicious. And that, his mother just gets from down the road. You know, it's not over-processed. It's grown right there. That's what you want.
I've got Amazon pods, and they're really good.
Oh, right.
Right, that is all we have time for. What is your best cup of coffee, very quickly, as the coffee expert?
This is so trashy, but a Tim Hortons double-double. I'm sorry!
Oh, my God.
Tim Hortons double-double. Right, that's all we've got time for. Thank you to my guests. Stop talking, I'm trying to do a piece to camera. Thank you to my guests, Scott Capurro and Dana Alexander. Thank you to you at home for watching. Headliners will be back at the same time tomorrow with Simon Evans, who is possibly Britain's best read man in the hot seat. Until then, from all of us here, we say cheerio.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling.
Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss, and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Tonight on Farage, we are going to send those people that cross the English Channel in small dinghies to Rwanda for offshore processing. Will that solve the problem? Wimbledon look like they're on the verge of banning the world's #2 tennis player from competing because he's Russian. Can that be right? And joining me on Talking Pints, I'm going to be joined by Gloves Off actor Brad Moore. But before all of that, let's get the news.
Hello, I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has appealed to Russian people to seek out the truth for themselves about Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. In a video message directed to the Russian population, Boris Johnson said they only needed an online VPN connection to gain access to independent information from around the world. It's after the mayor of the Ukrainian town Bucha has accused Russian troops of deliberately killing civilians during their month-long occupation of the town. The Kremlin denies the allegations.
The atrocities committed by Russian troops in Bucha, Irpin and elsewhere in Ukraine have horrified the world. Civilians massacred,